Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Grant Kastner. I am Extempore's community manager here for this Thursday afternoon presentation on using IPAs to prepare students for AP assessments, presented by myself, Grant, as well as my colleague, Lisa Parasteves, our SME and bilingual SEAL specialist here at Extempore. Lisa, hello.
Hi. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. So to give us a bit of an overview, Grant, if you can head to that next slide, let's just dig in. We went over our backgrounds a little bit before we hit the record button. I've got, like Grant said, I'm with Extempore. I also have 17 years experience in the high school Spanish classroom. And here, using IPAs to help prepare for AP, I'm also an AP teacher during that time. AP language and culture is what I'll be focusing on. So we'll first start with a working definition of performance and proficiency, so we're all on the same page, and then we'll dig into how we can use the IPAs to give feedback to students. Also, how we can work in some essential skills into our IPAs that can help students on AP exams. I'll be giving some examples and kind of equating some possible IPA tasks to an AP exam section, actually all the AP language and culture exam sections. And then Grant is going to give more in-depth information about how Extempore can help us with all of this. Of course, we'll always have some time for some question and answer at the end. And if anything comes up, feel free to put it in the chat at any time as well, and we'll be monitoring that. So here, performance versus proficiency. All of my information is heavily guided by ACTFL, as I hope everyone's is if you're a language teacher in the United States. So here on the left, you see performance. And this is the what. What are the students going to do? What are you going to have them do? What is your learning target? What is the end goal? Here, performance is in our classrooms a communicative task aligned to a theme, maybe a unit of study. A performance is something that you're able to practice ahead of time, something that you're able to rehearse. I also have a background in music, so this makes me think of concerts and performances. We practice and practice and practice before we take the stage. And a way that we can use performances as assessments in our classroom are our IPAs, the Integrated Performance Assessments. On the right-hand side, to contrast, we have proficiency. This is the how, or the how well, or to what degree are the students able to perform. This is the application of their knowledge as a whole. There's no assigned content. There's no prescribed vocabulary list or grammar point. This is what a person can consistently do without rehearsing. If you want to think about it like musician as well, this would be like a jam session where musicians just get together and they play, and it's spontaneous. Nobody knows what's going to happen next, but they're constantly adjusting and making it work. For language teachers and language students, there are many types of proficiency exams out there. The AP Language and Culture exam is one type of proficiency test. I also like to think of proficiency as if we were to take our student and drop them in the culture, how would they do? what would they be able to do in that moment at that time? They don't know what's going to happen next. They don't know where they're going to end up. To what degree can they get their needs met, for example? Okay, Grant, we can head to the next slide. You're giving credit to ACTFL. Performance tasks are informed by the ACTFL functions. So here, this is hopefully a graphic that you're familiar with from ACTFL, the inverted pyramid, where novice is at the bottom, moving upwards through the proficiency levels. And this also shows that the further up you move in proficiency levels, the longer it takes to transition to that next level. So next slide, Grant, please. So these proficiency levels are reflected in my IPA rubrics. Here's an example of an IPA rubric I have used in the past, and this is for interpersonal conversation. You'll see at the top left, it says intermediate low. This IPA rubric is one that I'm using with students that are trying to get to the intermediate low level by the end of our course. You can see that the meets expectations strong column is lightly highlighted in pink. That indicates the proficiency level. This rubric meets expectations strong is the intermediate low description, if that makes sense. Yeah, I'll say that again. On my rubrics, the meets expectations strong column is our goal. That indicates where the proficiency level is. So if you're using advanced low, meets expectations strong is going to be your goal column. And you can see that there is information in meets expectations minimal and does not meet expectations. There's also information in exceeds expectations in the next proficiency level up. So I can use this rubric, and I do use this rubric to like as a roadmap. So students can know where they have been, they can see where they are, and they can see what to do next. So maybe a student is not yet meeting expectations strong in text type, for example. It tells them right there, if they're using simple sentences and memorized phrases, in order to do better and improve, they want to practice adding to those simple sentences, making them strings of sentences. Also, at the bottom of the rubric, you can see that I've added on the left and the right evidence of strengths and examples of where the student can improve. So this also is where I personally will put like the most pressing or the advice that I could give that would help the student the most. I'm not going to write every single thing because that's overwhelming. But if there is something that a student is consistently doing well and consistently consistently showing room for growth, try to asset frame this. That's where I will write this down, say, okay, this is where you are today. This is one thing that you could focus on the next time to do well. So I'm using this in order to communicate to the students and communicate to myself and anyone else that might see this rubric or might see the grade book where I'm recording this, communicating the students' strengths and the areas for growth. Okay, Grant. So again, when we're giving feedback, we want to make sure that the feedback is timely and that it's meaningful. This is going to give you the most bang for your buck. I'm sure you know this, that if we give an assessment and the students don't get feedback until a week later, like the moment has passed. So taking IPAs in small, like organic ways, for me is the best way that I can give timely feedback for a student. When I say organic ways, I mean have students read something and then they talk about it and then they share what they learned. So there's an interpretive, there's a conversation, there's an interpersonal, and there's a presentation of information. And it's just happening in real time. And I can give them feedback on the spot. It doesn't have to be written on a rubric if I don't want it to. But if this is an assessment that I'm using as a summative assessment, then I would definitely have a rubric and have a written record of where the student is at this point. I think these bullet points pretty much in the IPA section, that first little section up there, those first 3-4 bullet points summarize what I've already talked about when we were looking at the rubric. And then the AP Language and Culture exam, being a type of proficiency test, is also aligned to proficiency level. So if a student scores a 3 on the AP exam, this is an indication that they're at an intermediate low level proficiency. A 4 on the exam, intermediate high, and a 5 on the exam, advanced low. So the AP Language and Culture exam does align to a degree to the ACTFL proficiency guidelines or proficiency levels. So the AP Language and Culture exam can be used to give students feedback as well. We can take that proficiency level that they get and help them understand how this translates to their potential future employment. So if we go to the next slide, Grant, you'll see another graphic from ACTFL on oral proficiency levels in the workplace. And I know this is really, really small, but I mean, we can all go to actfl.org and we can just search oral proficiency levels in the workplace and you'll see this chart come up. So in the classroom, I tell my students, if you're meeting expectations strong, say on intermediate high, that means something for their future. That means that they have skills that are employable at that moment. So also, if a student then gets like a 4 on the AP test, which correlates to intermediate high, that translates into employable skills for their futures. So I'm trying to tie the task that we're doing in the classroom with the students into what this means for their proficiency. And proficiency, being able to prove their proficiency, in this case for this webinar with the AP test, that can mean something. That can really validate their skills. Okay, Grant, next slide, please. So now I'm hoping that we're familiar with the term IPA. There's a participant in our group today that I want to give credit to. One of my mentors, Karen Nickel, we were working together and she got our whole district on the road of integrated performance assessments. And now this was more than 10 years ago. And it really revolutionized the way we teach, the way we look at language, and definitely how we assess. And before Karen introduced me to integrated performance assessments as IPAs, all I knew was that IPA was a beverage. Thank you, Karen, in the chat. Yes, it did rock my world. So some of us might be on that end of the spectrum. Like IPA, I thought that was just something that adults could drink. Other people might be, I've heard of it before. I'm dipping my toe in the water a little bit. There's other folks that are like, yeah, I use these, and others like Karen that can teach everybody else about it and lead districts on this revolutionary road of integrated performance assessments. So here, just to make sure also that we're all on the same page. Integrated performance assessments are a series of assessments that are all integrated under a common theme. Now in AP, it's nice because the College Board has given us 6 global themes. Although, yes, I understand they're very broad, but that also means in the classroom, we can take this in many different directions. We have a lot of room for creativity. So in integrated performance assessments, I would normally start with interpretive. And this is assessing from literal comprehension to broader. So keywords, main ideas, supporting details, organizational features. All of these sections are practicing the skills that students need in order to do well on the reading and listening parts of the AP exam. Those multiple choice questions are asking questions about main idea. They're asking them questions about organizational features, about tone, about the author's perspective. Students have to make inferences beyond the text. So if we're using interpretive IPAs in our classrooms, we're breaking down these skills for the students, and in turn, we're giving them feedback on where might you need more work? Where are you good? And as a teacher, where might I need to give more attention and time in the classroom, more practice to my students? After interpretive is interpersonal. So this is conversation. This can also be a written exchange in information. So like a chat, texting. In the AP exam, we have the formal email reply. In the AP exam, we also have a simulated conversation. In our IPAs, it's also breaking down the different type or the different areas of interpersonal conversation that students are developing and showing as they're having a conversation. Language function, text type, communication strategies, comprehensibility, and language control. And then presentation is, now that I've learned information, now that I've shared or talked about information with somebody else, bounced some ideas off of a partner perhaps, now I'm going to show you what I've learned. We can present information verbally. We can also present information in written form. And those rubric areas on an IPA are very similar to interpersonal, with the exception of impact, paying attention to your audience. Okay, Grant, next slide, please. Some essential skills that we can be practicing with our students, not only in our AP classroom, but in all levels of language, are functional chunks, especially at our novice levels, functional chunks of language, getting your needs met, asking a question and understanding what the answer is. Language that helps students cite sources. Even just the word for source can be useful. That's definitely something students will need to do on the AP test. Also something that can help reinforce cross-curricular knowledge and practice in many of their classes and in life. People are expected to cite their sources. So doing this in the target language is definitely meaningful and useful. Language to compare and contrast ideas, asking follow-up questions, also being able to understand and respond to both negative and affirmative commands. Sometimes in the simulated conversation, students will be directed to answer affirmatively or answer negatively. So that's quite helpful as well. Notice giving commands is not a skill that I listed. Of course, in certain circumstances, yes, students will give commands, especially like to one another or to their siblings. But for the AP test, understanding commands and responding to commands, especially in that simulated conversation, are the most, I think are the most realistic examples of how commands are working in our daily lives. Like I mentioned a couple slides ago as well, getting students used to common types of interpretive questioning, and this can be done simply through using interpretive IPAs. Questions that talk about the theme, the tone, inferencing, symbolism, point of view, the purpose, and cultural values, and how cultural values show up. What do they look like? What do they sound like? I like to give the example in my classroom with coffee. So you can really see the group versus self in cultural values when it comes to coffee. So we know our products, our practices, and our perspectives. Our product is the coffee. The practice is the drinking of the coffee. It's what they do. But those cultural perspectives, the part that we don't see, is that most important part of understanding cultural values, how they compare. So in Colombia, for example, a lot of my examples in the classroom come from Colombia. That's the culture, the Spanish-speaking culture where I have the most experience. And we know Colombian coffee is a very popular worldwide export. So I will ask the students, look at coffee, for example. Here, when do we drink coffee? Oh, in the morning, when we're tired, on the way to school, on the way to work, maybe after lunch when we're like hitting the wall and we need an extra boost. Yeah, and a lot of us are sitting there with our coffee mugs in front of us. We take it on the go. Coffee places have drive-throughs. It's go, 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 grab your coffee and run. You're drinking it in the car, you're drinking it on the bus, you're drinking it during class. In Colombia, on the other hand, it's an invitation to spend time in community. You show up to somebody's house, the first thing they offer you is coffee. Can I get you a coffee? And thank goodness they're little bitty ones, because otherwise I'd be in trouble every time we go. Also, if you invite somebody out, let's go meet up. Let's meet at this coffee shop. Let's meet at this little place. Even the little cafe on the corner is going to have coffee. So you order your coffee, and the important part of drinking the coffee is being with the other person or being with the people. It's the time you spend together. It's the conversation you have. It's both of us carving out this chunk of time in our day to dedicate to one another. And yes, the coffee's there, but we're kind of using it as an excuse to get together. So getting students to understand, yes, there's this thing that we we all have or that we both have, like coffee. But how people view the coffee can be different from culture to culture just because of the difference in cultural values. A collectivist society versus an individualist society, and how those societies are governed differently just because of these values. Okay, Grant, next slide. Thank you. So here's a slide. I know it's lots and lots of information here. Way too many words. I'm committing a crime here. I tell my students to not put so many words on a slide, and here I am, not taking my advice into account. So here, the purpose of this chart is to take each section of the AP language and culture exam on the left, and I'm suggesting an IPA task that can help practice that section of the AP test. So on the left, interpretive reading, this can be any type of authentic reading source. As we AP teachers know, students will have to read things. They'll have to understand a chart or a graphic as well. So lots of different types of sources is essential. Grant, if you could click to the next slide quickly, I've got some examples of just a variety of interpretive sources. You can see there's a menu. There's like a class schedule, a daily schedule. There's infograph. There's a bar chart, or a bar graph with percentages. So students at any level can be practicing their interpretive skills with authentic resources. We don't want to change the source. We want to change the task. Grant, we can go back to the previous slide. In interpretive reading and listening, this is where we have the two combined. On the AP test, they still have the multiple choice questions, but there's a variety of different sources as well. So again, authentic sources that students can read, also authentic sources that they can listen to. On the AP test, it's only audio. There's not audio and video like we would have in YouTube. So throughout our levels, scaffolding toward audio only is helpful, definitely helpful for your colleagues teaching AP. But this really gets them, combining the two, really gets the students to analyze and synthesize information. So Grant, if you can click 2 slides ahead, or you could just click that link where it says interpretive reading and listening. Here I have an example of 2 sources that I used on one assessment. This also, I want to credit Karen Nickel with also saying, hey, you should be doing this. Everybody should be using 2 sources, because that's what students have to do. And that is really how we take in information. We read things on our phone, we watch videos, we listen to stuff maybe on the radio or podcasts. We're taking in information in many different ways, and we're comparing and contrasting that information. We're comparing it to self, we're comparing it to the world, we're comparing it to other texts. So it's only natural, and it only makes sense that we would use multiple sources in one interpretive assessment. So you can see here, just for the main idea, I'm telling students use information from both sources to provide the main idea. So naturally, I'll have students say, do you want 2 different main ideas or just one main idea? I said, well, that's up to you, because these 2 sources might complement each other, and it might make sense to do one main idea. These 2 sources might not complement each other. They might not have, they might contradict one another. So maybe it would make sense to do different main ideas. So Grant, you can go back 2 slides. Thank you. So don't be afraid to give students many sources in one task. Next, on the AP Language and Culture exam, students will go to the presentational writing with the essay, the argumentative essay. An IPA task idea could be as simple as, based on what you heard or what you read, give them some context, give them a theme, state your opinion, and persuade your audience to think the same way you do. This is my opinion, I'm right, and this is why. And they're going to use evidence from their source or sources, hopefully what they read, what they heard. In interpersonal writing will be the back and forth, the formal email reply. Here, any sort of written correspondence that would be natural for your students, as long as they're able to use a formal register. If a formal register is what is also being assessed in your language. I know not all languages have a formal register. However, there is some sort of correspondence, written correspondence here, emails, texting. It could be, I mean, we're kind of beyond that, the chat room sort of thing, but it makes me think of if you're trying to get through to customer service somewhere and they say, oh, open a chat, like you can chat with us here. This is a really natural, realistic way that students would be writing a correspondence. So this is something, maybe there's a friend on the other side of it that's playing a different role. Maybe the teacher's on the other side of it, playing the role of the customer service agent for all the students. Interpersonal speaking, our simulated conversation. I don't know about you, but although this is the shortest part of the AP exam, it causes my students the most grief, the most anxiety, the most stress. Because in my opinion, I think it's because it's not normal. They don't have a human there. They don't have the gestures and the visual cues. You can't read anyone's facial expressions or read anyone's lips and rely on all of these different types of communication during the conversation that we're used to. If we think back to maybe when we studied abroad for the first time, and we had to have a phone conversation. We had to call somebody or we had to answer the phone in that target culture. I was freaking out. I don't know about you, but I sat there. I was like, oh my God, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know how this conversation is going to go, but I have some phrases that I know. There's a structure to the simulated conversation where students are probably going to have to ask a question. Students are probably going to have to negotiate something. They're trying to find a time to meet or find a place that would be appropriate for this event. And of course, in any conversation, there's going to be an opening to the conversation and there's going to be a closing to the conversation. So there are some things that we can help the kids prepare for. Although what exactly the person is saying to them, we have no control over. So giving them the most practice as we can with this will help lower that affective filter, especially practice where they can make mistakes without penalty. Like, don't put it in the grade book. This is just for practice. This is for some formative feedback. So here, Extempore does a really good job of helping practice for the simulated conversation part of the AP test. In our classrooms, we can be having these conversations, like audio conversations, like they would on the AP test. It could be a video chat as well. It could be a live conversation. Any type of opportunity to interact with another person in the target language verbally. You can use pictures as prompts. In our novice levels and transitioning to intermediate, infogap activities. And our students will end the AP test with presentational speaking. This is their cultural comparison, where they have 4 minutes to prepare. They have a topic or a question. They have 4 minutes to prepare, 2 minutes to record their response. So in our classrooms for an IPA, this can be any sort of spoken presentation, comparing why people do what they do, why people think what they think in target cultures versus their home culture or the USA or a culture with which they're most familiar. They want to also give specific examples to support their ideas. This can be anecdotal information, like, oh, I heard this, or I read this. I saw a video in class. We watched a movie. My teacher said blah, 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 blah. So they don't have to formally cite sources in this section, although they certainly can if they want to. Also, something that I really keep in mind with my students in my classroom is when it comes to spoken presentation, when the student is presenting information on the AP test, when they're doing their 2-minute recording, they have their notes in front of them. They just had 4 minutes to prepare, and they're allowed to use that information. Maybe think back to your first year teaching. Some of us might have scripted out the lesson and had our notes in front of us. We use our sources, we use our resources when we are preparing presentations. Like every lesson that we give in class is a presentation. And I have prepared, I have practiced, I have my notes. I might have my slide or my agenda on the board. That helps me keep track of where I am, where I have been, where I'm going. Yes, Grant in the chat. Yes, teachers are professional presenters. Yes, whether we like it or not. Yeah, public speaking is something that we can't get away from in this life. So why not? Students, when we're writing, we're practicing, we're drafting. Writing is a way to present information, as well as when we're speaking, we're using our resources, we're practicing, we're getting feedback from other people, hopefully, in the class. So before an IPA presentation assessment, hopefully your students are having multiple opportunities to practice and get feedback before they give their final presentation to say, ah, ta-da, look what I learned. Look at all this information. Look at how awesome I am and how far I've come. Next slide, please, Grant. Oh, sorry, two, 3 slides ahead. There we go. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Grant, who will give us some more really useful information about how Extempore fits right in.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Lisa. Sorry, I was muted for a second. Thank you so much, Lisa, on that background. Yeah, with the little bit of time we have remaining today, I just wanted to showcase a few ways that Lisa gave so many examples just now on how you can use Extempore to practice for AP assessments. practice for AP assessments and use it for IPAs. So like I said, I just wanted to show a few really basic examples of how you can use the platform for AP assessments, for IPAs, and for other assessment prep. So if you don't know, very quick introduction, Extempore is an assessment platform. You can host reading assessments, listening assessments, writing, speaking, all 4 skills, all 3 modes of communication. And with the platform, one example that I want to highlight is our AP simulated conversation piece, which Lisa was just talking about earlier. So with this, you can use Extempore. We'll see there's a pre-recorded audio already added here. And as a student, when I come to the platform, I'm ready to record my response. I can click record. And when I record my response, I'll also play the audio at the same time. And then the simulated conversation is recorded right there. So then I can, or not I, as a student, I can complete it and practice a simulated conversation for the AP assessment. But then once that's done, my teacher can go back and listen to it, provide feedback, and tell me how I did on the AP simulated conversation piece. So I'm going to do a very, very brief just sample of how this works. So you see there's 2 minutes and 8 seconds. I'm not going to speak the whole time. We'll see how it works. So I'm going to click record. Once I click record, I get a nice little countdown when I'm a student. So now I want to do the simulated conversation. I'm going to click play.
Buenos días. Quería saber si me puede dar ideas de cómo manejar el reciclaje en nuestra comunidad.
No tengo ninguna idea porque no hablo español. And I'm done. All right, as you can see, so I've done I click pause on the recording. I'm going to click stop recording here. And now if the student had played through the whole thing and has much better Spanish level than I do, obviously, they would have the whole thing there. And then the teacher can go back to the grading page and listen to the recorded simulated conversation that the student has. So I'm going to click submit attempt. And then from here, I just want to show a couple other examples. And so a big chunk of this presentation was talking about IPAs, integrated performance assessments. So within Extempore, you can host, like I said, you can host many different types of assessments. So for example, I teach Chinese. So if I was doing an IPA with Chinese, I can create interpretive-based assessments. So from here, I can create an assessment, and I have within this assessment, you'll see this is something that I've done with my students before. This is talking about different schools. In China, there's different types of universities, and students can just identify, okay, interpret this website here and tell me what departments, what academies this school has and what different majors that they offer for their school. So that's an interpretive based assessment. And so then from that interpretive assessment, the second part of the IPA is the interpersonal. You can also host live interpersonal speaking assessments on Extempore as well, which is really cool. And so with our synchronous group, so if you wanted to do it, you can see my image shows up here. I would have a partner in this room with me. And so I'll click go to room. My partner would show up here as well. I can click go to room. And then within this room, that's okay, I can do it by myself. Within this room, I can join, and you'll see my camera will start, it will show up. I can see the task. And so it says in Chinese, talk about what classes you take and what you would like to major in when you go to college. So from here, I can do the second part of the interpersonal assessment, or of the IPA, which is the interpersonal, talk to somebody here, get information from them. And then once I'm done, I can click submit. Response submits. And then from there, I can move on and do the third part of the IPA. Obviously, I'm doing a bit faster than your students might do, but this is just to showcase the various different features that the platform has to help you host these types of assessments. So since the IPA, the keyword integrated, it's all together, right? Use what you learned in part 1 and part 2 to complete the presentational writing portion. I click in, choose my keyword, and I can complete the writing. So you see I have a presentational writing point based on part 1 and part 2, compose a brief blog post where you give advice on what school people should study, people should attend and why, and suggest a major degree of study. So the idea is that the first one you saw, interpretive, the written response, and then the interpersonal where you can talk to one another. I showed the simulated conversations over AP, so they're oral responses, and then combining this to create one IPA and integrated performance assessment on Extempore. So before we take questions, I wanted to just showcase a few other ways that you can use the platform. Lisa mentioned earlier using it for proficiency based. So one of the things that she mentioned also was, I don't remember the exact phrase that you used, but proficiency is when you drop somebody in the target culture or the target country and you say, what can you do? Well, I like using, I believe this is it, should be. Okay, so this is a basic message response. Like I said, for the email response on AP, you could do this. I think maybe question 1 is the free rate. Yeah, so for this is a free talk, right? So like Lisa said, what can you do in the target country based on what you know without any sort of support or help? This is something that you could do on Extempore as well, just a free talk. So I give my students a picture and say, hey, how much can you say about this picture? No supports, just what do they know and how much can they say? How well can they say it, right? What vocabulary do they recognize? Are they saying just basic words? Are they coming up with full phrases? Or are they making full sentences about this image here? So I've talked a lot. I showed some ways you can host AP assessments on Extempore, how to create a full IPA, use those to help your students prepare for the AP assessment, and as well as a handful of just basic practice assessments on Extempore as well. We have a whole bunch of these on our website with blogs and resources on our YouTube channel. You can check them out there. And you can also ask questions now. So Lisa, I don't think I missed anything, but I do want to have time for questions and answers while we are here. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay.
So that really concludes. I'm going to bring back our slides over here.
A couple slides, but they're just more like summary.
Yeah, just some summary. Yeah, well, we're a bit tight on time. So
yeah, absolutely. I tend to talk when I get nervous.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
Give me all this space, and I'm nervous. I will fill it.
So that's okay. So we have in sum we did AP practice, simulated conversation, cultural comparison, IPAs with 3 modes of communication, performance-based tasks, communicative tasks, message responses, what have you, and proficiency-based free writes and free talks. I'm a big fan of those. Lisa, did you want to wrap up talking about tips for assessing and preparing for AP?
These are things that AP teachers already know. It's always nice to hear a reminder that these are the 6 AP themes can spiral throughout all of our courses in addition to our AP classes. Hopefully now we understand how AP skill or IPA skills can integrate with AP skills. Also, we want to be using as many real life settings as possible. This gives us meaningful context and communicative purpose. Always using authentic sources, never editing the source, but editing the task. And something that helps give me peace at the end of the day, or when I'm in that moment in the classroom, like, oh God, like they're not doing their homework, they're not doing this, if they would just do it, then they would do better on that IPA, they would do better on the exam or whatever the assessment is. I just have to remind myself, it is my job to give the kids the opportunities and the tools that they need. Opportunities to practice those tools. It's the student's job to take those opportunities and to use the tools themselves. Forgiving. Thank you, Chelsea. The more opportunities we're giving the students, like we're doing our jobs.
Isn't there an idiom out there, Lisa? What is it? You can lead a horse to water.
Oh yes. Oh yes. Yes. Yep. And then we can finish that idiomatic expression however you want to finish it. It's like, I try to shove the horse's head underwater and it just won't drink.
Didn't know how to drink.
Right? I guess not. I missed that step.
I can tell you. So we have all sorts of resources on AP Prep, on Extempore. We have videos. We have on how to create an AP template. We have simulated conversations. We have all of these sample assessments that you can use: Spanish audio, Chinese audio, French audio, German, English. I mean, you get the idea. I don't think there's an English AP assessment for world language, but you get the idea. It's a template. Use them however you want with your students. They are free. Use them. Create an Extempore account. Add them to your account. These slides will be on Sketch. I will put them there as soon as this is done for you to take these and use them in your classes. And then, of course, that was anticlimactic. And then, oh my gosh, where's my and then, of course, connect with us. Yes, please send us an email. Both here at Extempore. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thank you very much. Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we're all there. Like I said, the links to this, this link to the slide presentation will be up on Sketch. Click these links then and find us there. And finally, please take a few minutes to just complete the feedback form. I will put the link in the chat for you to do it. Scan the QR code, get an entry into our giveaway for the PD Extravaganza, and a sincere thank you to you all for attending, and thank you to my wonderful colleague, Lisa, for this insightful and informative presentation.
Oh, thank you, Grant, for your expertise.
Oh, come on.
Extempore, and for clicking through the slides for me.
I know, I felt so bad.
I'm so basic. Thank you.
That's not a hard job.
To all of our attendees for taking time out of your summer to be here with us today.
Any questions? We are here. If not, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow at one of our other sessions. All right. I'm going to stop recording.
Yay.
Yay.